Men today more than ever are expected to have a certain level of sexual prowess in the bedroom. Your skills and your reputation that are transferred outwards through past partners, future partners that may be, who talked amongst themselves, are going to catch wind of things if they're interested in you. And if you're still someone that's not in a monogamous setting, but even if you are in a monogamous setting, because this obviously still applies to you, you want to be healthy sexually at your root, at your core, so that all other aspects of your health can be built upon that. So by working with these small things like premature ejaculation, wet dreams, and other issues of the bedroom, we can start to address those problems at that root and develop a healthier being overall. And you'll see increased energy and much more satisfied feelings towards yourself, just in terms of your own psychological health, by learning how to address and fix these problems. Hello kindred longevity lifestyle designers, this is Zach here with Secrets of Longevity.com. Issues of premature ejaculation and wet dreams are very similar in their root cause. Many other issues in terms of problems around sexuality for both men and women could be related to this. However, this video is of course focused on male health. Now, the recommendations in this video generally are going to apply for both premature ejaculation and wet dreams, which are the two things we're focusing on this. I'll perhaps do future videos on things like erectile dysfunction and prostate issues, etc. down the road. Those are a little more further removed and have very slightly different approaches to addressing. But by all means, if you're having a wide berth of different issues around your sexual health, a lot of these things could contribute to some of these other things. So the first thing that needs to be said about all of this is that there's a deep psychological component to both of these. When you get into starting to accept yourself, learn how to be present in the moment, learn how to breathe deeply, just overall be calmer, more comfortable in your own body, in your own skin, especially when you're with someone else, you're going to have a reduction in incidences which could be embarrassing for you and possibly the person you're with. Now, if you do have these issues, it's nothing to be worked up about. So if you've ever been in a situation where you had either of these happen, whether with someone or not, don't sweat it. If it's someone who looks down on you and treated you poorly for it, you need to learn to step up for yourself and stand up for yourself. And if it's in your past, just let it go. It's in the past. Don't dwell on it. Don't get depressed by it. Take a strong step forward and realize that your body is your own and you can make it do what you want it to do. I'm basically going to be talking about two major things to this video. One is dietary and herbal approaches to addressing these issues, as well as more practical based exercises which could in and of themselves be all you need to do in order to get to the next step and be confident in your sexuality without these problems cropping up. One of the first things we're going to talk about, because I already talked about meditation, is getting in touch with your body. I've done a video which you can check out here on the microcosmic orbit, which is simply tracing a pattern through your body. It's basically a cycle going up the spine with your awareness, around through the head, and then down the front. I'm not going to get into the specifics in this video because I have it here. I made it just under a year ago from the shooting of this video, so it's still very new, and the instructions are very simple to follow. And if you do that just once a day for a long time, then over time you might do it less if you're incorporating more meditations, but it's always good to have a good meditation practice at least once a day, in my opinion. So the more you do these things, the better it's going to be in terms of your overall psychological health, even if very quickly you get over some of these issues. So that is sort of a Qigong type exercise. Any other type of meditation can be very beneficial as well. That's just one example of one you might want to check out. Other things from this category of sort of practical things you can just simply do in your lifestyle, a really simple one would be to not eat or drink too much before you either go to bed or before you engage in sexual activity. So if you're going to bed, the general guideline I give everyone and follow myself is don't eat 3 hours before going to bed. So leave that 3 hour gap, at least longer if you need to. so that your food is totally digested and you don't have a ton of glucose and proteins flowing through your bloodstream, which kind of keeps your body from being able to go completely into a deep state. And when it's in that state, from my own experience of doing periods of very long abstinence in terms of not ejaculating, I was still engaging in sexual activity, but I was doing what's known as seminal retention from certain Taoist practices. And when you get to that place, it's a little more tipsy, you could say, in terms of accidentally going over the edge because you're very full, you have a lot of energy and power in your body, and that's something I found to be very important, is to not consume food right before going to bed. Even if you can get away with 1 hour before going to bed, you're usually in a safe zone. I just say 3 because that's probably optimal for your health. If your issue is more premature ejaculation, then leaving an hour before sexual activity is going to be important, so that the blood flow that does go down there isn't sort of having this tension between, should we be digesting food, should we be having sex, what's going on here, body, and it just throws things into a bit of disarray, and it's harder to concentrate, it's harder to relax because you're full of food, and yeah, it's better to just have that go through. Another very important thing to do is learn how to breathe deeply. Learning how to breathe with your diaphragms. I say multiple diaphragms because there's actually a thoracic diaphragm that is right at the bottom of the rib cage, which everyone talks about in yoga and things, that you want to breathe deep into your belly, feel your belly sort of pressing outwards. But there's actually a pelvic diaphragm as well, which is down, you can't see because the camera doesn't go that low, but down at the hips, sort of the whole pelvic girdle. There's a diaphragm that keeps basically your intestines from hanging out your butt. There's several diaphragms through there. There's also the urogenital diaphragm, which is down by the perineum, which is right at the bottom of the pelvis, around the anus and the vagina for females. But the pelvic diaphragm and the thoracic diaphragm are the two that you want to sort of breathe down into. So if you almost imagine that you're breathing down right into your pelvis, as opposed to just doing belly breathing, that, in my opinion, that's not even deep enough. You want to feel like that whole area of your body is filling up with air. And if you combine that type of breathing with the microcosmic orbit, that video I had up earlier, that is in and of itself a great practice just for developing the neurological awareness that will carry forward into everyday life. So you might do this practice for 15 minutes a day, and then, it might be the end of the day before you engage in something sexually, for instance, with a partner. But because you've gotten your body used to breathing that way, and you've carried some of those traits and abilities into everyday life, you bring that ability to breathe deeply like that into the bedroom. And that allows you to be calmer, more relaxed, and the more you're calmer and relaxed, the more control you have over your genital area in terms of the muscle contractions, your urge to ejaculate, and things like that. One of the most important things that you need to be doing as well is Kegel exercises. I'll be doing a lot more information on this in future video, which I will put here, but it's not done yet, so it's not going to be there for anywhere from a couple months to 6 months. I'm trying to get it done in that time period. But when it is, it will be here, and that's going to be a video on sort of the higher level tantric type exercises and approaches to sexuality, or Taoist Tantra, and that is higher level stuff, but this is definitely a foundation. If you start doing Kegels, which is basically squeezing the muscle you would use to stop the flow of urine if you're peeing, this is great for men and women to practice this, is start working on Kegels in throughout the day. It's hard to overdo them, perhaps at first a little bit, like any muscle that's just starting to get worked out well. You want to build up slowly, but over time you want to try and do little sporadic bits of them throughout the day. Whether you're doing dishes, you can do them. It's simply feeling yourself squeezing as if you're stopping the flow of urine, but also squeezing your anus and your rectum. You want to feel that tighten up like a hard pelvic floor, and then relax it. There's variations on how you can do this. You can do a lot of really hard, fast pumps and squeezes, or you can squeeze and hold for a long time and relax, and squeeze and hold and really go to that maximum tension and then relax. Or there's even exercises where you can combine it with breathing, and while you hold your breath, you keep it locked. It's actually the Mula Bandha, I believe it's called, in yogic practices. And that develops that tension and that power that you have in that muscle to control. And when you have that, you're a lot more able to control the urge to ejaculate. So these things, tonifying that area of the body, will also help with wet dreams as well as premature ejaculation. A major thing that you need to start doing is undoing the psychological imprinting you've had that has caused you to be a premature ejaculator or someone that frequently has wet dreams. And what this is, for instance, one way that this sort of program of premature ejaculation gets etched into some people's minds is their upbringing. Perhaps they were in a slightly less liberal household. Parents never talked to you about your sexuality. You discovered at some point that you enjoyed masturbation, self-pleasure, but you were told at one point that it's not the best thing, or you were embarrassed by it because someone said that they never want to see that because your parents walked in on you. So then as you started to explore that more and more as you got older, you would do it in a very hurried fashion. You'd masturbate furiously to just get off and then have the release and the feeling of pleasure that came from that, but you didn't want to get caught. You didn't want someone coming into your bedroom. You didn't have the privacy and the ability to take it slow, be relaxed, and take your time and just enjoy the sensations as opposed to just trying to get to that end point. So if you go through your whole upbringing from whenever you perhaps started masturbating, if you were on that path of really hurried, really frantic type of self-pleasuring, you've developed the neurological muscle memory, if that makes sense. If you've learned any skill that involves motor skills, you know that it takes time to learn something, but that memory is almost always there, kind of like when you learn to ride a bike. You can not ride it for years, and then you pick up a bike and you can still ride it. So same thing with that, is you want to reprogram your body to be slow and in no rush to get to the end point. One way to do that is to self-pleasure and draw it out and allow yourself and give yourself the time and opportunity to take it long and slow, basically. You can be fast, but you want to stop at the edge. You don't want to get to that point of no return within a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Start setting goals like, I'm going to spend 10 minutes masturbating, or I'm going to spend half an hour, or I'm going to spend 2 hours. It sounds crazy or ridiculous. Maybe don't do it in the shower. That would be a lot of water wasted. But allow yourself, and this doesn't have to be a daily thing either, to do very long periods of time where you're treating yourself well and it's just about you. And actually take away pornography if you happen to be watching that too, because that is something that's very overstimulating and is at the core of a lot of sexual issues for men as well. The addiction to pornography is very prevalent and, in my opinion, very unhealthy for your sexual health in terms of the images we see and the overexcitement we get from it. There's a very addictive quality to that. At no other point in male history have we had such abundant and ridiculously overproduced images of women fornicating right at our disposal. So that's something you want to cut back on, in my opinion. But by all means, that does not mean that nudity is wrong or seeing people naked is wrong. Now again, there's going to be that future video where I talk about the higher levels of sort of tantric practices, which this is a jumping point from. When you learn to extend the period of time that you can self-pleasure yourself, you can get to a point where you're just not even interested in that little tiny end point of an explosion of seminal fluid, which compared to the pleasure you can feel building up to that point is more of a loss of pleasure as opposed to just staying within that pleasure field and continually cycling that energy. A few other very important points, and this is going to be just touching on premature ejaculation. It's less so to do with wet dreams, but you may find, if you're the type of person who is practicing seminal retention, that if you engage in any of these things, you might increase your risk of having a nocturnal emission that night if it's right before you go to bed. So having very violent and vigorous sex is going to set you up for possibly either ejaculating too soon, or if you're practicing seminal retention, it can cause you to develop pain down there from blue ball type symptoms, and that's going to make you want to ejaculate. And even if you don't do it, you might end up doing that in your sleep. So another one is having sex on a full stomach. I actually mentioned that already. Having sex when you're physically and mentally tired. So it is probably a very common thing that people think they have problems with premature ejaculation, but they're always having it at the very end of the day after a long work day. They get home, they might have a girlfriend or wife, and they want to connect with them, but they're just so exhausted that they have no stamina, they have no will to hold back, and so it just happens too quickly. Same thing goes for having sex when you're emotionally distraught. This is probably not a massive issue for men, but if you're extremely angry or extremely aggravated, tense, anxious, fearful, all those things are going to distract you from having full, relaxed, deep control of your pelvic floor. Another problem that people probably don't think about is if they're getting into the trap of focusing on a fantasy or something else aside from the present moment. So if you're engaging with a partner or even on your own and you're focused on fantasies, that's going to pull you out of the moment, and again, you're not going to have as much control. Now, if you can do a lot of those things I just talked about in that first section, you're going to be good to go. If you want to take it further, if you have a really severe case, diet and herbs and supplements can be very beneficial in helping with these things. In some cases, they might be the one thing you need to get better at this than just using the previous things mentioned. I actually asked the question out on Facebook what people thought caused premature ejaculation. I got a wide variety of responses. Some were great, some were already on my list that I'm talking about here. Some I think are definite myths. The idea that a woman can be too hot and can cause you to premature ejaculate is a little silly in my opinion. It's not necessarily the woman being attractive that's causing that, it's the fear that it brings up in you. So again, we're getting to that place of looking at, are we fearful? Are we relaxed? Are we calm? Are we able to breathe deeply? Because if so, you can be with anyone and have no problems whatsoever. Another thing that was said was you need to be experienced, or lack of experience can cause premature ejaculation. That is another huge myth. Now, I don't want to say this to impress you, but I'm saying it to impress upon you that regardless of how many partners you've had or how much sex you've had in your life, that's irrelevant to your ability to control yourself in the sexual act. I begun practicing some of the Taoist tantric practices around the age of 16, and I was beginning to become sexually active, and the people whom I was with at various times while growing up in that sort of teenage span and even into my early 20s is that a lot of people thought I had a completely over-the-top sexual history just because of my skill. This was not the case, as I've never been promiscuous, not interested in exposing myself to really dangerous diseases and things like that to such a large degree. So it actually does feel really good for your own confidence to be able to get compliments like that from people whom you appreciate, and obviously you're going to be returning compliments in other ways to them hopefully as well. Now that being said, there are definitely people who just have no skill because they haven't had time to cultivate the control through their own self-pleasure before getting sexually active themselves. Another thing that can cause nocturnal emissions is sleeping position. If you're the type of person that tends to sleep on your back, you may want to start working into other positions. For some reason, in that position, a lot of people find that blood tends to pool, obviously along the backside, but also it can pool in the pelvis, and when that happens, you have a lot more blood in the prostate and just around that whole area. So when you become aroused at night, it's a lot more, because well, actually most people have several erections through the course of the night if you're healthy and have good testosterone levels. But when that occurs, when you get that erection in your sleep, that's a position that's more likely to cause a seminal emission. Of course, there's other things that would be factors. Anything very disruptive that you do before going to bed could have an effect. It's really about trial and error if you are experiencing this, because other people have told me things that didn't quite make sense that they would do that they thought was causing their issues. And you just simply have to find out through trial and error what works and what doesn't. Another common one is excessive drinking before bed, or in proximity to before you're going to bed. If you're going to bed drunk, you're basically quite likely to, or more likely to have a nocturnal emission. So the next section is all about diet and herbs, and this alone could be all you need to change your body in a way that causes you to reduce wet dreams, reduce premature ejaculation, or you might be able to accomplish it with just the things from the previous section I've been talking about. But in my opinion, combining both is definitely the best way to go. It's going to be increasing your overall health anyways, so take note of all these things. Something that a lot of people aren't aware of is the energetic quality of foods. So things cause either a rising of energy in the body or a lowering of energy in the body. They can heat the body, they can cool the body, they can dry the body, they can moisten the body, they can lock in the moisture, they can move the moisture outwards. This is Chinese medicine thinking. It's a very down-to-earth and self-exploratory thing that you need to start looking at if you're interested in this. Foods that are very downward pushing or downward flowing tend to increase bowel movements, they increase bleeding for women if they're on their period, which obviously is not going to be a good thing. And they can also increase nocturnal emissions and cause premature ejaculation in men. So it's that moving downwards of fluids. It can increase urination is the other thing. Now, in some cases, you might have an issue, a disease, where you want to have the stronger downward flow of your bowels or your urine to help cleanse those areas out. But overall, we don't want things to be going downwards too hard. And if you're experiencing premature ejaculation and nocturnal emissions, you want to not have that happening. So perhaps the most detrimental food for this, and it's a wonderful food in its own medicinal qualities, but in this specific scenario, I'd say take it out if you are consuming a lot of it, is raw honey. Honey has that downward drawing quality. A lot of people know it's very soothing to the throat, but it's also a great stimulator of regular bowel movements. But in that quality, it is also going to increase the ease at which you eject your seminal fluids. So cut back on that, or better yet, avoid it in a long stretch of time before you engage sexually with someone or before you go to bed. And if your case is particularly in a rough spot, then definitely take it out altogether. You also want to take out phytoestrogenic foods. I've done videos on this in the past. Just search the word phytoestrogen on my channel on the home page, and you can find plenty of videos on those topics. I'm also going to talk about 4 very easy to use herbs. These are all tonic herbs. They can be taken in large quantities, small quantities, daily use or staggered use. There's no upper limit dose to these, but you want to sort of keep a consistent dose to feel the benefits and get the long-term results you get from compliance of daily use at a really decent dose. So number 1 is hushuwu. This is perhaps the all-time best herb for giving you a foundation to your sexual health. It provides a lot of zinc, which is going to be good for replenishing sexual fluids from men. Has a lot of copper, builds the blood, it's got a lot of iron, and overall it's very potent in increasing your sperm fertility and motility, but it's also building to that yin-jing, which didn't actually touch on yet, but the idea of jing is that this is at the core of your body, and it's your overall health and foundation to everything, and on top of that you have your qi and then your shen. So that's something a lot of people are talking about nowadays. Anyways, I've talked about it in the past on my channel, so if you search Jing, Qi, and Shen either on my channel or on YouTube, you're going to find plenty of information about it. In fact, I will link you to one video here, which is a video I've done in the past on Yin Jing and how to build it up, and it's a better explanation of it, but it's essentially the core of the core. Jing is your core foundational energy. Yin Jing is the core of the Yang Jing. So overall Jing is yin and yang, and yin is that very centermost point. You can think of it that way. So other yin Jing tonics which are great for building the resistance to excess ejaculation, premature ejaculation, wet dreams is another good one, Schizandra. Schizandra berries are very much a whole body tonic, and they have a very astringent quality to them. So they draw fluids into your body, into the confines, places of your body that need hydrating. And they also keep fluids from leaking out. You can find a link below to a source for all the herbs I'm talking about, these 4. The first 2, hushuwu and Schizandra, but also the next 2, which is cordyceps and mucuna. So very quickly, cordyceps is a yin and yang jing tonic. It's a very good whole body tonic as well. And then mucuna has the unique ability, it is a yang jing tonic more so than a yin jing tonic, but it has the unique quality in studies done on mice where it actually increased the amount of time that mice spent copulating. So it actually lowers oversensitivity of the genital region. It's not going to deaden the feeling down there, but it is certainly going to decrease an overexcitation that could be occurring from various causes. So it's a very good one for premature ejaculation. So with that, look at all those links below, consider the things I've been talking about, check out the videos that I have posted throughout the video, and also leave a comment below. I'm definitely not going to ask people to divulge their sexual histories, of course, but say whatever you want on this topic, I guess I'll leave you with. So with that, take care and embrace life without limits.